Eastern religions.
You've seen him a million times, the dancing deity in the Ring of Fire, the image of the Hindu god Shiva. In searching for my personal connection to best explain these roots of trance dancing from ancient India, I felt I needed to go deeper than books. I felt the need to invoke Shiva. So last night, as I prepared to go to a party at the Dimension 7 warehouse in San Francisco, I considered my intention for the evening. I wanted to become a sacred temple dancer. I knew I was on target when I arrived and immediately was greeted by a large bronze statue of Shiva dominating the altar in front of the DJ. Shiva had indeed been invoked. The magic had been spun, and the time had come for me to experience my devotional dance. The techno beat morphed in my head, the mesmerizing drone of devotional songs being repeated over and over again. Ecstatically allowing the trance to overtake me, I felt my body gyrate in unfamiliar ways that seemed as old as Shiva himself. I was able to leave my body and observe myself in this new, old incarnation. The trance dance spiraled me into the deep meanings of these movements. So this must have been the justification for the nights of wild sex I've read about in those Hindu temples. It is obvious to me that they were also in the trance, induced by the rhythmic music of their own blissful states. I wondered what local concoctions the devotees imbibed. After all, Shiva is the god of sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Within the warm, protective womb of Western, specifically Christian culture, these heartfelt observations may read like nothing more than a recipe for personal enlightenment. But both the Bible and the cultures that live within the full force of these demonic doctrines declare otherwise. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death.
The devil's music.
Bands like Kiss and Megadeth may try to trivialize charges of occult influence through ridicule.
Megadeth fans, are you ready to sell your soul to the devil?
But when axes aren't being ground, even rock apologists will acknowledge this dark side, as in this cover story by the British rock magazine Mojo. How rock and roll really did dance with the devil. The 1960s witnessed an occult revival, the likes of which hadn't been seen in the West since the fin du siècle days of Madame Blavatsky's Theosophical Society and Aleister Crowley's Golden Dawn. For some artists and individuals in and around the rock music industry, this dance with the devil is both literal and intentional.
And we feel that a cleansing of the idiot ideology of the pallid, incompetent Christ is in order. And so this is something that the Church of Satan is conducting on many different avenues. We're doing this through the use of what we have called aesthetic terrorism. This involves the creative use of art, music, writing, effectively what we call propaganda, the dissemination of information to influence what we call irony.
Am I the son you've been waiting for? Am I the children war? To be your messiah on earth, and to sit at your left.
To create the most evilest music and to gain entrance into the seven gates of hell.
Do you believe in demonic possession?
Of course.
Are you possessed?
Of course.
Well, there's a clear, at least I assume there's a clear satanic influence in your work. Is that real, or is that sort of tongue-in-cheek humor that you
No, that's as real as it gets.
But your art certainly, it seems to express the stereotype of Satanism.
Yeah, but I use that specifically to bash the church. Because that's really what Satanism is to me. It's anti-Christianity.
Both the Bible and human experience make it clear that the vast majority of people who live under the power of sin and Satan are unaware of it, at least consciously. Salvation then is described as a process whereby God gives people grace so that they may know the truth, that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. The scriptures also address how these same senses can be progressively seduced until people can't tell, spiritually speaking, up from down, their right hand from their left, as they walk as the Gentiles walk, in the futility of their mind, having their understanding darkened. The eventual result, individuals and, if left unchecked, eventually a culture in which this darkness reigns, where evil becomes good and good evil, and where finally even the occult and Satan himself become acceptable, even cool.
Father Lucifer, you never look so sane. You always did prefer the drizzle to the rain. Tell me that you're still in love with that milkmaid. How the Lizzies, how's your Jesus Christ been hanging?
Sounding for all the world like Crowley and LaVey, Tori Amos told Spin magazine about her love for Lucifer, a Latin name for Satan. I wanted to marry Lucifer. Lucifer was the brother holding the space for mankind to act out their fears and hidden secrets, things they won't acknowledge. That's what the shadow is, and once you don't deny your shadow anymore, then it's not a perversion of that energy source. I don't consider Lucifer an evil force. We can all tap into that free-running current of distorted energy. She went on to talk about him on a more personal note. I feel such a sadness from him, she said. I cry and feel his presence with his music. I feel like he comes and sits on my piano. Yet this is a pretty serious being. I'm a little squirt when you think what a very serious force this is. Avant-garde artist Diamanda Gallas has admitted to tapping into this same energy. Before performances, I used to say prayers to the devil. It was like making a connection to some source of power so that I could do what was not socially accepted. It was like, you know me, you understand me, I can speak for this reality, you can help me do this. Among her many blasphemous recordings, writings, and performances is her interpretation of Baudelaire's The Litanies of Satan, which includes the final prayer in French, To thee, O Satan, glory be and praise. Grant that my soul one day beneath the tree of knowledge may rest near thee. It should come as no surprise that she has described her performances as being like a ripping of the flesh, like a bloodletting. A kind of voodoo possession? Asked the interviewer. Exactly, Gallas replied. A Ugandan who saw my performance said that what I did reminded him of a voodoo ritual, which is practiced in Uganda. That if I were performing there, I would be worshipped as a high fetish priestess. Well, Gallas and Amos have loads of company when it comes to artists who get off on this fetishistic voodoo sympathy for the devil vibe they view as the true heart and soul of the music. Robert Palmer glowingly described it as the central rock and roll paradigm, a kind of voodoo rooted in a vigorous tradition of celebrating nature and spirit that's far removed from the sober values of Western culture. David Byrne lovingly helped produce a television special about it, calling voodoo-related sound a big part of where our popular music comes from. Rock and roll comes from those traditions, and I believe that the power and influence it has had has come because it carries a small part of that energy with it. And this same voodoo vibe was more than just a lyrical device for Jimi Hendrix. a percussionist from West Africa who often played with the guitar god, observed that many of the signature rhythms Jimmy played on guitar were very often the same rhythms that his father played in voodoo circles.